Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our open studio night for August of 2022. Our featured artists this evening are Nick Gomez and Warren Nelson. They are working collaboratively this evening to make a goblet with a creature inside that will look something like that when it's all finished up. So Nick is closer to, I don't know, which camera are we working on? The one directly in front of me. So Nick's hand is what you see in the foreground. Warren is working in the background. Warren is going to be in charge of making the cup for the vessel, and Nick is going to be in charge of making the creature that will live on the inside of it. These guys are working with oxygen propane fired torches, producing flames in excess of 3,000 degrees in temperature, working with scientific or borosilicate glass. This is more or less the same type of material that all of our Pyrex glass is made and constructed of. Very durable, designed to resist thermal stress, and it can go from hot and cold very, very quickly. If you guys have any questions as we're going through the process, the chat is open, and we'll do our very best to keep you guys informed as to what is happening. So Warren's got a very, very large blow tube set up over there, getting that base really nice and hot. Oh, fantastic. There should have been at least one program set up in that kiln.
There is, I'm just going to run it at
A billion.
50 because of this color. Oh, it's already running at 950.
So on that far torch, Warren's getting that base really nice and heated up, and then using that clear rod of glass to actually pull and stretch and clean off a little bit of that material so he doesn't have any unneeded mass out there. Also pulls it to a really nice fine point. As we go throughout the evening, you're going to hear lots of nice breaks and crackles and pops. And a lot of the time that's just that excess glass being pulled off and then dumped directly into water so it can break off the rod that they're using as a cleaning tool. Add a little bit of air to that superheated end and it puffs it right out. Working time with this type of material, which is a borosilicate glass, maybe 8 to 10 seconds at its maximum. You don't have a lot of time to really think about what you're doing. As you're heating this thing up is really about where you're going through your contemplation of what is the next move I'm going to make. If you come out of that fire and you're thinking about what you're trying to accomplish, you're probably already too late, and then you just got to soak the heat back in and go once more. So we are working inside this evening. It's still really nice and toasty out here. We didn't break 100, I don't think, which is a small miracle, but we're going to try and keep you guys a little bit climate controlled this evening in our flame working / cold working studio. Probably in very short order, however, with the temperature and heat these torches are throwing off, things are going to get really nice and warm for us anyway. We'll probably break out every once in a while just to stay nice and cool. Probably pop some fans on. So Nick has pre-made some eyeballs. You can see there in that little tray. He's going to add a little bit of hot glass to the tip, pick that up so he can now actually get that nice and warm, because that's going to get attached or eventually attached to the body of the creature. He wants to make sure he's got that stuck together, however, before he goes through that entire process to put everything where it needs to go. So there is a kiln actually underneath the bench that Nick's working on. It's at 1,050 degrees. It's a nice stable temperature to keep this glass. Ooh, goodness. That one got a little bit angry. That just needs a big fat eyelid.
Yeah, I don't know if that's what it might work. I don't know, I don't want to risk it. So I lost half my eye. I think it's because of the sharp angle on the inside. And then the other one I just punted up to and knocked it off. I'm
So if you guys are joining us online, watching the video feed, as these guys stick the glass into that fire, you're going to notice pretty much a really nice bright yellow glow. You'll notice these gentlemen are wearing glasses that are pretty dark. The lenses are designed to filter out what's called a sodium flare. So as this glass actually enters the flame, we're burning off the sodium ions that are in the glass itself, and these lenses filter it out. So you don't have that bright yellow glow. You can actually see what you're doing in the flame. So Nick's picked up another eyeball. He's going to give it a little bit of warmth, and then he's going to garage it or put it in the kiln that's underneath the table, so he can use that at a later date and time, or give it a little clean off and then come right back to it. So he's going to, he's got it attached in the back half. He's now going to switch it around, so he's punching up or handling up to the iris or the pupil itself. All right, Warren, talk us through what you're doing over there, buddy.
Right now I'm just preheating this tube. Borosilicate can withstand temperature differentials of like 400 degrees or so before it'll shock. So I'm just kind of trying to get it up to maybe 800 or 900 to where that's the stress point. Beyond that I can handle higher differentials. And that way I can go in, I'm going to attach, I'm going to open this up and then attach this handle here. And then cut off a section about 8 inches, 9 inches long, and that will be the prep for the top of the goblet there.
So if you guys didn't hear that on the feed, what Warren's doing is giving this tube, which is really, really massive, 50 millimeter, 60 millimeter?
65.
65 millimeter tube, so really, really big. That's one reason why he's using those rollers. Trying to put that in your hand and rotate it nice and evenly would be really, really challenging. So those rollers give him a nice bit of stability and keep things moving really nice and evenly. He'll get this really nice and warm, blow out that end, and then he's going to take one of his handles that he's already made and attach it to the base. Then take about 6 to 8 inches interior, and that will be the body of the cup. It should be where our hub foot. So Warren has opened up that end. Yes. Yeah, that's basically what they're going for. Do we know Warren?
I do.
I thought you might.
Yeah, we're married.
I did a little bit of nosing around on the Facebook and the Instagram. The face was a little familiar, so.
Incognito.
Right.
You're gonna be like, you know so much about glass blow.
Yeah.
It's in one of the drawers.
I don't know.
It's in a drawer now. So Warren is lining up his blow tube to attach to that 65 millimeter tube, trying to get everything running really nice and even, and at the same time create a really nice hot heat on both ends of that tube. So it creates a really nice hot seal, and he can move it and affect it the way he wants it to go. While that's happening, Nick is getting that base with the sparkly blue and the green really nice and hot, and then he's getting ready to add that eyeball to it. Warren's got his section put together. It's a good thing you got big arms, man.
Yeah.
I would be in a world of hurt if I was trying to do what you're doing.
You find a way.
We all find a way as glass artists, right? So he's got that handled up really nice. Add a little bit of heat on the top of the seam just to make sure the weld is really nice and even, so when he does eventually blow, it don't have any holes where the air is going to escape.
Can you grab me some black?
Some black.
Yeah.
Where am I going to? Just in the jar.
Just out of the jar, or I think there might be some. I don't know if I want. I'm really sketchy about using that blue as the base color.
I'll do it.
Yeah, I'm not gonna.
I mean, your sketch.
Nothing on the handle.
Give me one on the handle. Yeah.
See me reworking this seal a little bit, and I'm just softening it up. What I'm trying to do is just keep the end right here. You can kind of see it's a little bit out of center. So I'm just heating up and letting it sag just a little bit on the high spots.
Nice.
So that my handle is as on center as possible. The better you start out keeping things in line, the better things will turn out.
So Warren's just taking a little bit of extra time, making sure the handle that his right hand is on is really nice and even and centered to that big 65mm tube. So as he gets ready to work it, everything moves really nice and evenly as well. Come on in, have a seat, sweat with us. So again, Warren's preheating the midsection of that tube. Once it gets a little bit of that soot build up on it, then he's going to increase his flame and really build a really nice hot heat so he can actually separate that section on the roller from the handle in his right hand. While that's happening, Nick is over here building up another tentacle. Yes?
No, I'm remaking the body.
Oh, remaking the body. Don't trust that blue glitter. So we're just going to go straight black.
I'm gonna use the blue as an accent rather
Ah.
than the main.
Got it.
I'm gonna go black, and then print, and then use the blues for the dots.
So there are quite a few colors that don't necessarily work well once they kind of get encased in other glasses. So the first section that Nick was working on, he was concerned that that blue glitter that he was using, once everything gets put together, would have too great of a chance to actually break. So he's going to redo it with a black base and then use the blue glitter glass as an accent over the surface of it. Warren's pulling down that tube, getting that stretched out really nice and on that 65mm over there. Making it look easy. Nicely done, sir. Oh, look at that. Nice adjustment. Nice hip check on the torch. Get that thing.
Cut that before he got here. Imagine him doing that with a 4 foot tube.
Right.
So they use shots 5-foot tubes. So yeah, it would have been almost
Oh,
the
it is?
entire length of this bench.
Yeah.
That could have been a challenge.
Would've been interesting to watch.
So what Warren has now is going to be the entirety.
Split this in two.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Do the foot and the cup out of that?
No, it'll be 2 cups, and I'll make little separate ones. I'll put these on handles
Okay.
to make the feet.
Oh, very nice. So this will be prep for 2 different cups. And then the feet will be made at a later point. You're going to need more black, Nick?
Maybe. Yeah. You could probably look inside of the. Oh yeah.
goodness, we have an excellent crowd this evening. You guys brought it tonight. Thank you. That's awesome. Did you guys advertise we were going to have air conditioning? And people were like, oh, that'll be awesome. I'll be there.
Oh, I don't think this is black.
No?
No, because we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see how it goes. I think it's the experimental green.
Experimental green and black and blue? That can work well. Oh, absolutely. Thank you guys for coming.
Yeah. Try this in.
This is kind of our goal.
Oh, nice. Okay, kind of our goal. I like where you're flexible with it.
You have to be flexible. They have at least 4 backup plans that I'm aware of. So yeah, it's always good to be prepared. You never know what's going to happen. We had a little bit of a rocky start getting the studio set up this afternoon, so hopefully all the bad juju has cleared the room, but it's good to have options.
Get out of the way early.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Adding a little bit more of that green frit to what may be a black or what may be a green base in Nick's hand. We're not exactly sure. A lot of times those darker transparents look almost identical. And sometimes it's really hard to gauge what color this actually is. Is it a black? Is it a green? We don't know. We'll find out once everything gets nice and cold. It'll be magic for us all to kind of have fun with. But if you guys ever want to come play on these torches, it's what we're all about. We are about teaching people how to play with glass in some form or fashion. Maybe not to this scale right off the bat, but we can certainly get you there. Nick actually took his very first glass class here with one of our old instructors, Randall Strait, and was that 8 years ago now? 9 years?
10, almost 9. It was more than 9.
More than 9 years ago, Nick took his first class with us and has just been rocking and rolling ever since. He became our primary flame working instructor 6 years ago. I think that feels right.
About a year after I started, so about 8.
Really?
Yeah.
My ability to tell time is horrible.
Time flies when you're having fun.
It really and truly does. Time does absolutely get away from you when you're having a good time with it. Oh, that's looking pretty cool.
It does look cool. I'm actually wondering if I need to put more spread on it or not. 'Cause
So
I like
Nick's
that.
getting a pretty cool reduction on the base
Yeah.
of that tentacle that he's working on from the frit and the flame chemistry that he's playing with. And the flame chemistry can do a great deal to the color in the glass that we're working with, the borosilicate material. Adding a lot of heat or a lot of oxygen, or excuse me, a lot of oxygen or a lot of fuel can change how the glass reacts. And you can pull different colors out of the material based on what type of a flame setup you have, whether it's oxidizing or reducing.
I really like the shape of it. But, oh yeah.
It's not asbestos. The paper will catch on fire. Oh, sure.
You can hang it up over there.
Absolutely.
Since it's already sized for you.
Meow. That's what we're trying to make. All you people out there. It will have a foot on the bottom. It won't just sit there in space. We're live. Huh?
Is that streaming or Zoom or?
We're streaming on Facebook and YouTube. So, yeah, we've got. Pardon? Oh, Instagram's live as well? I know Nick's live on Instagram. Well, they're missing out. But we've got 4 cameras set up in here. So, yeah. They're all behind you.
Okay.
So, yeah, actually, they're other than this one, they're all behind you. So you're in a safe spot.
Okay.
Oh, that looks really good. Build up a little bit more black on here because it's a little smaller than I wanted.
I am going to step away for a brief moment. And we'll return.
No flirting with the glass blowers.
Well, thanks for coming out, everybody, and thanks for tuning in, everybody online. Welcome to Seneca Studios. Who's been here before in person? Anybody? Who's participated and picked up a pipe or a piece of glass and gotten it hot? All right, well, you're all invited back to take classes. We do all kinds of fun stuff around here. Seneca Studios is a nonprofit dedicated to education. We do programming in glass blowing, flame working, and kiln forming, 3 different approaches to working with glass. As you can see tonight, in front of the torch, we refer to it as flame worked glass. You start with rods or tubes of glass. You introduce it to the heat. You turn the heat up and down depending on what exactly you want to do, and you can melt it together and blow bubbles and cut into them and sculpt all kinds of objects. And so we're thrilled to have Warren and Nick here tonight to make a cup and with a real interesting sculpture. Looks like Nick is about to stick the eye to the side of the core of this little structural creature that they're gonna embed into the cup. Nick's known for his eyes. They're really hyper-realistic. They got great color and great texture inside. So that eye, it's hard to see when it's hot, but it has, as you can see here on this blue one, it has some great detail, and they're really beautiful. Yeah, look at that eyeball. Thanks for stopping in, you guys. Thank you. Yeah. We do this the second Friday of every month, so come on back by sometime. Okay. So like I said, flame working is one discipline that we offer classes in, one-time workshops, extended curriculum. Nick's written a great curriculum, and you can really learn a lot about this part of the material if you're interested. And then obviously the studio is public access. We do a lot of community-based things. We do outreach programming with different partners, and we do these demonstrations and kind of educational program regularly. But it is just one of the 3. So in kiln-formed glass, which is very different than this, we take sheets of glass and we can cut them up and create a pattern and design and then put them in an oven and program that oven to melt them together. So we can fuse things inside of kilns. If you want it to have form, you can heat it up a second time over a mold, 2 different temperatures, and let it drape and let gravity slump it over things to create different forms. And you can, if you're really ambitious, reach into the oven while it's hot and gooey and fold it, or pick it up and stretch it. So there's all kinds of innovative things happening in kiln-formed glass as well as flame-worked glass. And then the third, the glass blowing process, where we pull the glass out of the furnace already melted, and we can blow bubbles on the ends of steel pipes and sculpt things in a very similar way to how they're doing this tonight. It's just a different material. There's a different kind of glass. All glass isn't the same, right? The glass in our windows, the glass in our cars, the glass on our phone is all designed for its specific use. And so the glass that they're melting right now is a very durable, high-temperature borosilicate glass. And the glass we melt in the furnace, in the glass blowing studio, is a soft soda lime glass.
Not important?
There's an online question about fuming. So there's a lot of interesting techniques that you can do in glass. Fuming is where you literally boil away a metal in the flame, and the fumes from that, as the metal turns to a liquid and then to a gas, those fumes will stick to the glass because they're very hot. And if the glass is in the right place, if you take a little bit of gold and you fume it onto the glass, it changes the color. But that's not the, we need some, more ventilation to do that. So we're not going to probably do any fuming on this work tonight because we're really not in a public environment for that kind of toxicity. The glass is incredibly clean, right? That's what we know of glass. Glass is the ultimate container. It's wonderfully clean. Flamework glass was born in scientific glass making, and so scientists would bend and make beakers, right, and test tubes specifically so they were perfectly clean so that they could do scientific experiments and play with chemistry and all of those things. And so those flame working techniques is really what has kind of inspired the studio movement in flamework glass, because just as Warren is right now, there's been hundreds of years of people working in front of torches, melting glass and making little beakers and things that were super clean so that they could do science inside of them. Warren's got a blow hose attached to that bubble, so he's on a tube, and he was blowing a little bit. Good question online though. If you have other questions, type them in. I'll answer them to the in-person crowd as well as the online crowd. So like I said, Seneca Studios is an organization, is a nonprofit school. We teach all kinds of workshops and classes. We do all kinds of wonderful outreach programming with different partners, and it takes donations to do that. So I want to take a second and recognize the Texas Commission on the Arts for their support of this program. We are inside of a cultural district. Within the state, the Texas Commission on the Arts designates cultural districts. You have to apply, and so the Near Southside Arts District applied in 2020 and was awarded a cultural district designation last year, which opened up for all of the theaters and visual arts groups and other nonprofits some funding opportunities. And so we applied for a grant through the state. So I want to recognize the Texas Commission on the Arts for their support of this Open Studios Night. Also, Arts Fort Worth is a local organization that has a competitive grants program, and so we receive funding from them also for our general support. I'm going to recognize the Ann L. and Carol Green Rhodes Charitable Trust for their continued support, the J.E.S. Edwards Family Foundation, the R4 Foundation for all that they've done for us, and for everybody out there who's ever given us a buck. We really appreciate the donation. We do all kinds of programming, and it takes those donations to make them possible. So thank you guys for that support, and if you've got a couple laying around, throw a couple bucks at us. We could always use a little bit more to keep the lights on and to keep everybody growing and inspired to continue the work that we do. So you can see Warren just put up a screen, a filter. When you put the glass in front of the flame, the chemistry of the flame and the glass interact, and there's a flare, there's a soda flare. So what you see as this bright orange and yellow is the flare coming between the interaction of the two materials. And the glasses that these guys are wearing filter that out. It's not smart to stare at that, just like it's not smart to stare at the sun, right? There's a substantial flare coming off the sun which will damage your retina. And this will in time. It's okay tonight, it's okay periodically, but for these guys who are staring intensely into that flame, it's best to just eliminate that radiation. And so he's got an additional screen there that's helping him to see the heat better, to keep his vision really clean so that he can see exactly what's going on. And if you want to see what they're seeing, we have some glasses that will filter out that light, so you can kind of see the difference. It's really profound when you watch, especially what Warren's doing like right now. Look at it with the glasses and without, and you can see quite a difference. Yeah, it takes away the yellow so that you can see what's going on. Yeah. So he started by preparing some rods. So when you buy them, they're just a real consistent rod. And if you notice what he's got in his hand right now, he'll be using for all the different things. And so they put a handle, so to speak, on the size of the tubing that he really wants to work with. So he took the big tube and he kind of isolated a piece of it and he put it onto a handle. And then he's taking that and he's going to, blow and shape that into what his goal is. Now he prepared several different pieces, and the one that he was working on when you walked in will ultimately be the foot of the cup. And so he was just preparing those things as he's going through his process of this is going to be the cup and this is going to be the foot. So he just got those ready. And they're still warm over there, so they're somewhat, and they're also in their own way kind of, they're heating up. So that if you take it right into the flame too quick, it'll crack. But if you let it be a little bit warm, it's a little easier for it.
How many years have you been here?
We've been here 11 plus years. We took,
Cultural designation.
yeah, and then we got the cultural designation last year. Yeah. Sinica Studios is a nonprofit, and we've been doing exhibitions and classes and demonstrations since 2000. And really, we started our first exhibition in 2009, and then we started this in 2010, and we offered our first class in January 2011. So we've been offering classes for 11 years.
I was a committee chair for a convention, and we commissioned one of your artists to make little square plates.
Yeah.
As part of his favors. They're gorgeous.
Great, good. Yeah, we do. Yeah, we do some commemorative things. We do some memorial stuff. We have a wedding line, and so the organization has lots of ways to earn revenue, so that we don't have to rely so heavily on. Hey guys.
We're gonna let them have our seats. Maybe stand a little closer. We're gonna come back toward the end
Okay,
of this.
sounds good.
We'll give up some seats for others. We'll be back. We'll come back.
Yeah, it's not bolted down, so y'all be careful.
Okay. We're still here. We're still live. Yeah. Putting on the top lid to the eye. Just gonna heat that in, squish it down. And that's, I think, the core of this little sculptural creature that will live inside the cup.
Hey guys. Oh yeah, that's it. That's good. Yeah, are you good with that, Warren? Okay. I think we're good.
Nick's melting in that seam between the top lid. Top, you can really see that eye looking at us now.
Keep that fan down below.
You want the fan down lower?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll take care of that.
That's good. That's nice.
That trash can messing that up. It's tough to truly see the way that bubble's moving. Warren really got that moving. It's stretching and blowing, kind of defining the body of the cup. It's hard to tell on the camera how much bigger it's gotten, but it is moving. Really got to get your hands working together. You can see both of his hands are turning real consistently. It's moving quick, keeping things balanced. The middle's hot and flexible, so you kind of have to support the weight with each hand individually, but still turn them in tandem so that everything stays straight. It's a lot harder than it looks. Meanwhile, Nick's on the sculpting side of things. That's a cool torch. So this torch is kind of set up. You see he's heating one specific strip of the cup. So if you'll notice, the handles that these guys are using to work from are clear, right? It's clear tubing or clear rod. And what you just saw Nick do is to apply a little bit of frit, right? We can heat up rods of color and you can add it to the clear, or you can touch little specks, little particles of color to the surface. And Nick got it hot and just sprinkled some on there and got those melted in. And now he's going back and sculpting on the surface now that there's a little extra color, little specks here and there. Warren opened up that cup a little bit. He's heating the lip to clean it up. Glass has a surface tension when it's gooey, you know, just like water. You can overfill a cup with a liquid, and the cup it'll hold more than it really will because the liquid has a tension to the surface, and you kind of see that it's just barely over the lip sometimes. And so when the glass is thin and you get it hot, it seems to cook back and thicken up on itself. And it happens in all disciplines. It happens in everything that we do here. If you're in kiln forming and you put a thin piece of glass in the oven, you heat it up, it'll kind of bead up, you know, like water might on a really clean car, or in a hot pan, it'll roll around like a little bead. And And so the glass, when it's really thin, when you get it hot, it'll cook back on itself and thicken up. So when Warren cut that tube, that bubble open, he pulled it really thin, and then he stripped some of that thin glass off to get it relatively even. And now he's heating the lip, and it's cooking back on itself, and it's thickening up. And he's heating it in a way so that it'll do that evenly, and it kind of straighten things up. Now he's shaping the top section of that cup, making sure it's flat. We got a cup.
We got a big old cup.
We got a big old cup.
That looks like half a bottle of wine cup. This is for professionals only.
So Nick's kind of handled up to another piece of thicker rod, solid glass, and he put that thin handle on there, and he's going to work with this end to start making some tentacles, I think, some pieces to add to that little eye that he created before they end up sticking that inside the cup. Warren's really evaluating the shape of the cup right now, certainly at the top section, and getting it hot, using that graphite pad to kind of shrink the opening down a little bit and to get to the proportions that he wants. And Nick's got that black. Is that black, Nick?
This is sparkly blue.
Oh, he's going back to the sparkly blue. So he's got that sparkly blue, and he's winding it on to that clear rod. So he's got that clear rod, and he's got that sparkly blue rod, and he's heating the sparkly blue rod and pushing it towards the clear rod and twisting things, coating that clear with the sparkly blue. See if this cuts any of that out. Sometimes you can see a little better through these
You
filters.
can take my Diddy clip off of my phone and put it on that if you want. That way you can get a.
Oh, is that what's
It
going
just
on
like
over here?
It clips on over the camera.
See if that's a little better. It's kind of hard to tell where he is in the flame from that angle. Let's go underneath and see.
That's the hardest part. Of knowing
Yeah.
when to stop the open
Like, yeah, how nice can you get it before you,
before it's just straight.
Sparkly blue.
No longer got that nice little flare to it.
That's what does the.
Tentacle?
Yeah, I forgot. I'm gonna put a little frit on it. Just a little to give it to kind of tie it in. So it's not just straight blue. I'm gonna put some right at the connection.
What color is that fret?
This is called, what is it? Amazon Night?
Amazon
Starts
Night.
As a green, but once it interacts with the flame, you can start getting a lot of like a red reaction, like a light red earth tone. If you hit it with a very reducing flame with a lot of propane, it'll show some metallic sheen above.
today? Y'all go ahead. Y'all feel free to have a seat right there on the front row. Welcome to Seneca Studios. How are y'all today?
Put your glass in it.
This is just water.
Hey man, how you doing?
Pardon?
Good to
It
see
is
you.
just water. And you didn't ask for vodka.
No vodka, thank you.
Well, have y'all been here before?
Yes.
Okay.
These two haven't.
Okay, well, welcome to Seneca Studios. This is Nick and Warren, Nick Gomez and Warren Nelson. They're the featured artists, and they're doing a collaborative piece. They're going to make a cup similar to this one that's here on the table, but inside the cup there's going to be a little creature, a little sculpted kind of sea creature. Similar, it's going to have a big eyeball like the one Nick has around his neck, and it'll have some tentacles that are flailing off of it, living inside of it.
Multi-eyeballs.
Yeah. One looking out, one looking up.
Cool. You sticking one on?
Yeah.
Are you putting them on where you have the bumps, or?
I'm putting them on where I got space. If I have
Okay.
to melt in the bumps, so be it.
Gotcha.
How many tentacles will it have?
3 to 5.
Hopefully 5, but we'll see.
Alright. As always, a good,
4.
good odd number.
Hopefully, well, I was thinking 6, but like, I'm putting them on there as I make them, so I know how much room I have for the next one.
Gotcha.
Probably should have waited to put the bumps on there after. That's alright.
No, this way you're forced.
Yeah.
You can't get really creative.
Can't have that.
So Warren already made the cup. This is a multi-step process, and so the cup has been made, and it is in that blue kiln, the blue oven behind them. And what Warren has in his hand now is going to be the foot. So he's going to blow that out and open it up and make the foot to the cup. And then he'll have those two components while Nick continues to sculpt this little creature. And then ultimately it'll all kind of come together. Good to see you. If y'all have any questions, feel free to holler. And anybody online that's watching, if you have questions, we're manning the chat, and we'll answer them as they come through. What do you think, ladies? Any questions? It's hot, huh? This room's air conditioned too, so these big torches can get the glass hot, but they also put off a lot of heat, so. Oxygen and propane. Propane. Acetylene is very dirty, has a lot of carbon in it, so it would mix and turn the glass brown or amber. So you want a very clean flame.
What's the highest temperature that you can reach with propane?
You can push to what, 3,500 degrees. with propane and oxygen. The bigger the torch, the hotter it goes.
So when it's a blue flame, it means it's more oxygen or more propane?
More oxygen.
If it's bright yellow, there's more propane.
So the color, we can buy it in long rods or broken up little particles. And so Warren actually just poured some color through the tube down into the bottom, and now he's going to melt it in from the outside in. The torch will react with some of the colors, and so you can get a different effect if you put the color on the outside and put that into the flame, or if you put the color on the inside and then you heat it up without the flame actually touching it. It creates different reactions and different colors and different effects. So you'll see in and out of the oven sometimes, right? We can make pieces and then park them in the oven at, you know, around 1,000 degrees or so, and then pick them back up and go back to the torch. So Nick's going to take a little bit of clear and put some more of this blue color on it, and then a little bit of this lagoon color on top of that, and then make another tentacle and then pull that out and apply again. And he'll repeat that process until he's created this wild little creature. So y'all will probably see a lot of this bright orange, but if you look through these glasses, it removes some of that. So things look different to them. See how they're wearing those glasses? Look at them with the glasses and without, and you can see a big difference. It helps them to see exactly what they're doing in the flame. Hello, how are y'all doing?
Good, how are you?
Good, welcome.
Got some up again? you guys have any questions, let us know. We will make up excellent answers that you do not have to believe. You guys been here before? No. Well, how did you find us? Oh, well, fantastic. Well, very cool. Well, once you get completely bitten by the bug, you have to come back and take a class with us. We are good. We are a nonprofit. Education's our primary focus. We want to get you guys involved with the material in some form or fashion. We wouldn't expect you to go quite as aggressive as these guys are going right off the bat. We'll let you build up to it. But then eventually, you know, you get good enough, you can come actually rent the studios and continue your practice. So we do classes anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour, all the way up to 4 weeks and beyond. So we can give you that taste or get you fully immersed in the process. But the glass these guys are working with this evening is a borosilicate glass. It's very similar to the Pyrex we have at the house that we can cook with. It's a low expansion glass, which means it takes a lot of heat and energy to actually get hot enough where it's actually going to move. The torches these guys are using are oxygen propane, so we can get like a nice 3,000-ish degree heat coming out of them, so we can get this glass to move. Working time with the borosilicate glass is maybe 8 to 10 real seconds before you got to cram it back in that fire and get it really nice and hot. So planning becomes really, really critical in the process. In the flame working studio or lamp working studio, what these guys are doing, we work with two different types of glasses, and the borosilicate, which we're watching this evening, and then also a high expansion Italian glass called Moretti Fettri. It's designed to melt very, very quickly. It's not very thermally stable, so if you use the same type of flame these guys are working with and stuck that Fettri into it, it would actually probably blow up. So you have to slowly warm it in the fire before you can do something to it. But once it gets hot, it is super duper fluid. You've got to work really, really quick to complete what you're trying to accomplish. In most cases with that glass, we're making beads and jewelry, a little smaller scale. But that is not to mean that you can't work bigger with that high expansion glass. And everything that we do does get cooled down at least overnight. Even with the resiliency that the borosilicate has, you want to give it an opportunity to anneal or cool slowly to help remove as much stress as possible from the material. So we've got a couple of kilns. Nick has that red called a chili pepper underneath his table. That's at 1,050. And then we have that big large blue kiln in the very back. That's at 1,050 as well, just keeping the glass in a warm state. So what they're, yeah, eventually they do get cold, but yeah, as you're in a working capacity, you want everything to stay what we would consider warm to the process. Otherwise, if you just go from a hot to a cold, even with the durability that the borosilicate has, it still has an opportunity to stress and crack. Warren has already made the base or the cup for the object that these guys are making. He's actually making the foot right now. Warren's the gentleman in the blue. Nick is the gentleman in the gray on our right-hand side. And so Warren's going to blow that foot out. He's measured it precisely to the same opening as the cup, which is sitting in that garage. Once everything is ready to go, the cup will get assembled, and then the creature that Nick is creating will actually go into the bottom of the cup. So as you're drinking, you'll have this cool little creature trying to grab you. So as Nick's getting ready to add that tentacle onto the eyeball base, he's got to make sure, one, the tentacle is really nice and hot, so once he sticks it, he can pull it and stretch it to where he wants it to go. But he also needs to make sure that the connection point to the base and the tentacle are equal of heat. Otherwise, if they're not equal heated, when you go to stick them, you'll end up with what we would consider a cold seal, where you can actually have stress built into it, and the vibration could actually cause it to crack and fall apart. If you've got both ends equally hot, called a hot seal, once they go together, they weld really nice and evenly, so you don't have that stress or fragility built into it. So everything gets equally nice and hot. So Warren's building the heat into that foot. He's just brought it out of the flame, adding a little bit of air via the blow tube and blow hose, and getting that section closer to his left hand to actually swell up. So it's gone from more of kind of a pear shape to a little bit more of a tapered cone. Add that specific heat in that foot and then stretch at the same time, and it thins out that foot really, really beautifully. And then go back to that big bushy flame. Add some nice soft heat, and then eventually cut those two sections apart. Just a nice quick wrinkle, and then we'll pull it out. So what he's setting down on the bench is going to be waste. What's in his hand now is going to be the bottom of the cup, or the foot of the cup, I should say. A little bit of heat. Now he's got an open end. He'll come in with a graphite tool and start adding a little bit of pressure with rotation and slowly flare it out. A lot of times in the glass blowing studio, you'd see us do a similar move, but then just use centripetal force to spin really fast and flare that foot outwards. Because this glass moves relatively slowly, you can't build that much heat and have centripetal force do the work for you. So those graphite tools become really critical to add the pressure where you want it to fold out.
That looks like it's gonna fit pretty well.
Put 3 inches in that, or is that? That looks like it should. It's not set.
We have a ruler.
Oh, I bet we can find a ruler for you at some point. One moment, please. Nice guess.
Pretty close, yeah.
So certainly Nick's got to make sure that the creature he's creating will actually fit inside the cup that Warren is making. So those tentacles can't be too wide, otherwise they won't stick to the bottom of that cup. So knowing what you've got to work with, having good communication, as well as some nice tools to help make sure you're working in the same ballpark really, really help. So by building up the heat on the lip of the foot that Warren's got, it actually thickens it and gives it a little bit more stability of a place for it to sit. All the cameras are gone? Oh, well hold on there folks if you're online with us. Appears that we may have lost our connectivity, although it looks like we've got at least one camera potentially working. but we'll find out. So Nick's going to make the next tentacle, adding that color down the clear base. Or not.
I am trying to leave this side, this bottom side open, so that's the clear side. I can just go straight with the attachment. I don't want to cover blue. I don't want this blue to be inside the glass because of the sparkles. The metal oxide they use to make the sparkles can tend to crystallize on the inside. Because glass doesn't have a crystal structure, they won't work together. It will cause it to crack.
Nice flare, Warren. That's beautiful.
Nice.
That's so nice. You're super consistent with that hand rotation. Makes nice, even flare out. That's awesome.
Yeah, earlier I put this handle on the rollers, because even being out of center a little bit, molten glass will get inertia, and it will start turning this more oblong or round.
Reminds me of that Cesare Toffolo demo that we saw in Italy,
Yeah.
where he flared that foot, and everybody it was so graceful the way he did that.
Yeah, and you wouldn't notice that off-centeredness on that foot up until the very end, where you're getting ready to, like, everything looks great, it looks great, you get it ready to open it up, and all of a sudden, one side will just pull more aggressively over than the other.
Borosilicate, I think it's really good. Like, you can get it molten and do it fast, but I like to do it a little bit slower so that it has less of the ability to get out of control. Usually it flattens it, like it opens up pretty level by itself, so I don't have to worry about it wobbling too much. But I still do like to check to make sure it's not going to happen weird wobble issues.
That way you don't have to go back and grind it after the fact.
Yeah.
So Warren, like as Warren was saying, he's just making sure that everything is really nice and flush on that bottom. So after the fact, we don't have to go back and do any grinding to even up anything on that foot. Are we back, Gene, or did we ever go away? Man, we're still here. Hope we didn't lose you guys. Oh, just the computer? Okay.
So I let it cool a little bit, and I'm going to work on this lip and just getting that hot.
Nice. So just getting the lip hot on that foot, then touching it down to graphite, that let it kind of sink in.
Sink in and almost create a suction under there to make sure it actually is flat. This is just to help balance out the heat in the entire glass structure. Sometimes if you have an outer lip hot and then the center's cold, the outside glass is expanding because it's hot, and the inside is contracting because it's cooling, and it'll tear itself apart. You'll just have a big crack and it might even pop off or blow up or all that stuff we don't want. Hence the process.
And then again, that annealer or kiln that Warren is placing the foot into, it also has the cup in there. That's at 1050. That's a nice stable holding temperature. Once Nick gets a little bit closer to having the creature all put together, Warren will start assembling the cup, and then that creature will get stabbed in the center. We'll all collectively hold our breath and make sure we don't touch things we don't want to touch. And I should probably stop talking about what may happen and not jinx the process, because inherently that's what always happens. Any questions from the audience out there? No? Any questions from you guys? Awesome.
Did you see it so far?
Yeah, yeah. Looks good.
I've done
And this is the first time you guys have worked together, correct?
Second time.
Second time.
Yeah.
So,
We did a practice run a few days ago, but things exploded.
Definitely was practice.
so as we've kind of alluded to throughout the process up to this point, having a plan is pretty critical. You don't generally just kind of go blind into the process. So both Warren and Nick got together earlier in the week and did a little trial run to see what they could and couldn't do. And as Nick said earlier in the week, we learned what we shouldn't do. So they were able to adjust their plan. So when they come in to do the demo for you guys this evening, they know exactly what the process is going to be, what their limitations may be, so there aren't any undue surprises. So having that good communication, understanding what you can accomplish, how much larger can something be, do we need to adjust size, all become really critical. I had a better point that I was going to make with all that, but I've since forgotten. So it's what I do really well. I can just keep talking and talking about nothing and never answer your questions. And probably like you guys, I'm equally fascinated by the process, so I forget to talk about why they're doing what they're doing. So if I skip over something, certainly let me know. And I'm also trying to take pictures at the same time, so I cannot multitask. So that quick switch on the,
Where? Didn't like that.
heard a little bit of a kink somewhere in that creature.
Welded. Eyes are okay. Want to get this welded and then we'll look for it.
So we want to make sure that there aren't any cracks or any stress in the glass before you move away from it. Otherwise that crack over time will just slowly get bigger and bigger. So as Nick hit his foot pedal to go from the center fire that he's working on right now to that larger bushy flame, that extra heat found some stress in there, and there was just a little tiny pop that we're going to figure out where it's located here shortly. There's always drama. And you'll notice also Nick's attaching all those tentacles together, the bridging technique. So that way those tips of those tentacles, as the base gets hotter, they're not going to move around where he doesn't want them to go. If he was spinning quickly, those tentacles, if they had heat, would actually flare out. By attaching them all together, if we get a lot of heat in the thicker parts and we're turning quickly, we don't have to worry about those tentacles flaring out.
It also helps hold it up in position while I'm doing work down here and softening things up so it doesn't start moving around. Let's see. I don't see anything, and that's the worst kind of crack.
I think it was down by the handle maybe?
It did crack earlier by the handle, and I thought I healed it.
So when we refer to a handle, that's what is Nick is literally holding the creature with. That clear rod that's coming out of the base of the creature, that would be considered a handle. Conversely, what Warren's working on over there would be a blow tube. It could also be referred to as a handle as well, but he's working hollow, so that gives him the opportunity eventually to add air pressure to inflate what he's going to work on. Instead of 1,050?
Trying to keep it low to keep this color from staying, not getting happy, but you know, might just have to.
Well, why did you pick the blue sparkly?
Because it's pretty.
Okay. Warren wanted to challenge you. I see. Fair enough, fair enough. So Warren got the fun task of going and picking out the color and getting the supplies for the process. So as Nick has alluded to throughout the demo so far, that blue with the glitter in it does not like
That might have been
to be overheated, nor does it like to be covered up. So we want to make sure that that blue is as close to the surface as possible. You can use that.
It might have been me cleaning my rod here.
I felt it in my hand.
Oh, okay.
And it happened as soon as he popped on the outer fire.
I think we're good.
Nick's feeling better about the situation. Giving it a nice warm bath and fire. And then we can go back, add the concentrated heat where we want, and wiggle it to the desired shapes and posture.
How tall is this cup? I guess I got it right here.
About that tall.
Maybe a little bit shorter than that.
A little shorter? Alright, then I need to pull the tentacles down a little bit. That gives me plenty of working space.
Let me measure how high it is.
Have you guys done any classes with us? Why not?
We don't live here.
Oh,
That makes it inconvenient.
where do we live? Oh, wow. Dang, that's a journey.
I live in Charleston, but I love Glasgow.
Well, thank you guys for coming to visit. That's awesome.
Unintended dot. How tall it is? So yeah, I can pull those tentacles down just a little bit.
Yeah, throw them around themselves.
Yeah.
So that
I guess they could come out a little bit.
so that caliper that Warren had gives us the measure of the top of the cup or the height of the cup. So Nick can adjust the tentacle length as needed. Can either have them come out a little bit more aggressive or compress them down where they're more hidden in the interior of the cup. A little bit of green frit, make it match. Did our friends at American Glass Roots actually have that 65 mil in stock? Nice. Thank you, Don. Appreciate you.
Right? You can't buy it on Amazon. So.
No. Yeah, you can't buy a lot of this material that these guys are using on Amazon or anything like that. No, you got to have a quality supplier close by. Helps save on shipping for sure. So American Glass Roots helps supply us with a lot of the borosilicate glass that we use.
Yeah, everything we get comes in these 5-foot lengths. So even that too, this one this big was originally this long. When it is, I had 2 sets of rollers on either side of my fork to cut it in half. And this is actually one of those halves. And I'll put it on rollers and attach a handle this side and cut it right there. I'll get slowly shorter and shorter sections until it's left with one last piece.
And you keep the cellophane on the back end to make sure it stays clean, correct?
Yes, that's to keep dust out from the center.
Yeah, because it's something that size, it's a pain in the butt to try and clean it before you got to work it.
Clean and keep it less
Come on in, stay warm with us for a while. Not hot, just warm.
Go ahead and attach this handle to this side and then tear this thing in half and it'll become 2 more tops like that.
That one dead.
Ace booby trap?
If you can just take the,
I'm gonna put it back in here then.
yeah.
When he says booby trap, it's basically like if you open the kiln, things will slide out.
Because there's a little bit of an angle from the lip of the kiln kind of running down towards Nick's knees. You can actually see those red ones that are right next to you guys on your left-hand side. Same type of kiln where that lid closes down. It forces those rods to kind of run downhill on you. How are we feeling?
More to go. Oh, pretty good.
Yeah, I think so. Looking really great.
I guess I'll go ahead and turn this guy on. For me, we're good. Okay, what time is it?
Daytime. It's daytime.
Daytime?
It is 7:33.
Perfect. Gives me time to make another one.
Excellent.
Yeah, I'm making a backup cup right now. So.
So I think what I'm gonna do after this sculpting is done is I'm gonna go back with the frit and just sprinkle on. No, maybe not because it's gonna be on the inside of the cup. I was gonna like light frit with texture, but I don't want any of that to get loose inside the cup.
We can put it in the cup and we'll just shake it up real quick and try to like knock off anything loose and anything that's not loose.
That's true. We can try that.
Luckily, it's completely inert, so if you swallow some, it won't matter. Just go right in there. Breathing is a different matter.
My doctor feels better, my dentist, not so much.
There we go. Taper. Taper frit. I'm gonna let that sit in the annealer for a little bit. Not even at temperature yet. But leave this like this. You can make this cup the next one the same size?
Attempt to, yeah.
So you've got your creature all built, Nick, just waiting for
Last tentacle.
last tentacle.
Waiting for that to come up and be nice and warm all the way to the core. Then I'll add the last tentacle, let it sit in the kiln again, then I'll pull it out and I'll handle up to the front side.
On the eyeball.
Yes, I think what I'm going to do first is pick off the excess tentacle. That way it doesn't stick out of the cup.
Gotcha.
I want it to like just come right before, maybe, I don't know, 3/4 of an inch before the lip. So I gotta shorten those up. You know what I will do?
So while Warren is making the backup cup, Nick is waiting for his creature to warm up back to temperature, get back that core to 1050 so he can minimize any potential breakage. Then he has one more tentacle to apply to it, and then potentially shorten the taller ones down so they don't stick out above the lip of the cup. And there's going to be a transfer process as well from one rod to another rod, so we can make sure that the clear end of the creature actually sticks in the clear base of the cup. So if you didn't see the process earlier that Warren's working on right now, that 65 millimeter tube has to be warmed up nice and slowly in the flame. You can't just jump right into it. So he's working in the colder section of that fire to get the heat built into it. Once it starts getting a little bit of a glow, then he can add a little bit more fire, get a little bit hotter, so the glass is going to do more evenly. But you want to go nice and slow to minimize any thermal stress. Then he'll grab a small little rod and start peeling or tearing that tip off to just help thin it out and even it up. Did you build your sliding setup yourself?
I did. Yeah, I got this little.
It's pretty handy. That's outstanding. So you could work something really pretty sizable in terms of diameter if you needed to.
Yeah, it's also, you know, you can pull it out. Sometimes the bench gets in the way, and this way.
You can work around it a little bit more.
Turn this way.
That's nice.
To work on something like this.
That's
Just
awesome.
adds more flexibility.
Heck yeah. Ooh, nice little curl on that tentacle, Nick. Getting a little grabby. A little stretch and a curl. Zoom. Are you allergic to glass? It happens. You'll outgrow it, don't worry. We all do. So Warren's got the diameter that he needs on that big 65 mil. He's heating up the handle in his right hand, going to get both of those lips equally nice and red hot or pink hot. Take a deep breath and then stick the two together. Just like that, we now have the tubes connected. Continue the nice heat. That welds them evenly. A little pull, a little bit of gravity. That ensures that everything is actually stuck together where he needs it to be. And then that finer flame to really put the heat right on that connection point, so you don't have to worry about any little holes. And then by using those rollers, he can make sure that that right hand is nicely centered to the middle of that tube. Guesstimation is perfectly acceptable. So it looks like the creature's soaked up the temperature. A little soft bushy flame. Make sure everything's warm. That'll build a little soot potentially on that surface. And then he'll start soaking the heat back into that one section where he wants to put that next tentacle. I'm not sure if you guys can see it through the cameras, but there's a really nice light blue hue to the tips of those tentacles where they kind of stretch out. It's almost like an aquamarine color. It's really, really fantastic. And then very similar to how Warren put those two tubes together, he's now adding heat right in that midsection. Nice and slow at first, it'll get a nice big heat, and then I'll pull it apart to create two new handles or two new sections that he can work with.
A little bit. Hey Kevin, will you check the propane?
I will do my best. Running a little low.
Yeah, we're getting low.
Yeah.
We're almost on the needle, I think.
Okay.
Where's the key? I'll grab it.
There.
Mic off?
You got it?
Yeah, we'll grab it.
Okay. Well, Cliff will go grab us a new tank. We have almost burned through a whole 20 pounds of propane.
Just now?
Well, no.
I was like, you got a leak if that's true.
We'd all be dead if that were the case.
Yeah. I would estimate we probably use like maybe half a pound.
That's it?
Probably.
Okay. You're not making it sound very dramatic. It just sounds dramatic.
Wanna get some water?
Cool. So we're in a nice little holding pattern. We'll get some new fuel attached to the situation before we go any further, because better to have that thing swapped out at this point than be right in that critical moment to put everything together and all you have is oxygen.
Yeah.
Doesn't get much worse than
Like,
that.
I could tell we were starting to run low because my flame, like I tried to turn up the propane to make it a bushier flame, it just wasn't happening. I was like, oh, we're running on like 3 pounds right now.
No.
So that's swapped out.
Yeah, and normally we're running about 20 pounds on the oxygen, about 10 on the propane,
About 25, 30 on oxygen.
25, 30 on oxygen. So,
This thing should probably be running with a little bit more, a little more oxygen.
so
I think the recommended for it is 60,
60.
but I don't run it any higher than like 45, 50. Because I don't want to use up all my oxygen for no reason.
Understood. So we'll take a brief break. Cliff is going to hobble in here with 20 pounds of fresh propane. Guys are doing fabulous. Absolutely.
This is a good opportunity to ask them about what they do. What do you guys usually make?
A little bit of everything. I really enjoy making anything that I can, but a lot of times here at Seneca, I'm making smaller stuff, engines, stirring sticks. You give me the mic now. I'm on the spot. Pendants, stirring sticks, hummingbird feeders. What else? Air plant bulbs.
Personally, what do you like to make best?
Personally, I like to make pendants. I have been known to make pipes, also goblets, and all kinds of stuff. Anything that is a challenge. I really love making glass. I took my first class here almost 10 years ago, and I fell in love with it. And now I just try to make as many different kinds of things as I can make. I love making pendants. Pendants is what I started making. And eyeball pendants specifically, like this one right here that I'm wearing. I've been making these for almost the entirety of my career. But I like to make just about everything. I've really gotten into making like normal animals. Butterflies, seahorses, fish, all that kind of stuff. I enjoy sculpting. Sculpting is what I really enjoy doing. What about you, Warren?
That was a good short answer, Nick.
Right.
Good and short. It seems
The long rambling is wearing off on us. There's like torch is actually kind of still hot. Yeah, I started working. What's up, Kate? I started blowing glass around 2004, and also started out. A lot of glass blowers start out making pipes with borosilicate. But then I got really interested in doing goblets. I did my senior thesis on making cabinet poles because I really wanted things that I like making things that people can interact with. Like, I appreciate the work that you can really admire visually, but I want people to be able to interact with it because I feel like when you can interact with it, you're dealing with it much closer up, and you can kind of investigate it a lot further. Some of these marbles that are in here, this is this is a technique I just started doing, is putting these marbles inside of glasses, because I found that when you have a convex surface, the refractive properties of water actually magnify the marble, so you can see a lot deeper into it than you would with your naked eye, and that really allows allows you to explore the surface and the texture and all the details. What I'm doing, we talked about fume earlier. I think Cliff talked about that. So these marbles that are in here, I actually got one y'all can pass around. It's got a really steady handle. You can take a look at that. The seal is not, just try not to drop it. But what that is that's trapped gold and silver. Like I fumed that, or I melted gold and silver on top of a bubble, trapped it in clear, and then melted it in deep. And then when you fill up the glasses, it magnifies that so you can really see the surface of those metals that's trapped between two layers of glass. Other than that, I've tried a lot of different art mediums, and this one really stuck with me because it's the only thing, like, you can control the viscosity with the flame. You can go from soupy liquid to like rock solid in a matter of like 15 seconds. And so it's really neat to be able to do that. Anyone's worked with clay, it's really great. And you can get it kind of like to go back and forth, like hard, re-moisten it. This, you can get it, you can do liquid to solid as many times as you want. And so, sometimes I'll have a piece and it'll stay in there for years before it'll go on to something else. Yeah, so I'm rambling, but
Doing great.
right.
Making my job
But
a
that's
lot
that's the main reason I like the glasses, just because how many ways you can manipulate it, and then even outside of the flame, you've got all this cold working equipment. You can put masks on it and sandblast it. That's similar to screen printing. You can grind at it and create these flat surfaces. That piece up there has a sandblasted, so you can change the texture on the outside. So there's really just so many things that you can do with glass. It just really opens up the possibilities to as much as you want to imagine. And when Nick and I originally, we had this idea that the creature was going to be in here, and it's going to it's going to look like it's going to reach the glass. We were going to seal it to the inside and then seal a tentacle to the outside. That idea actually proved quite ambitious, and we'll probably have to try that half a dozen more times before we'll get a successful attempt. Mostly during that, we're finding out
don't do this. This is a problem. Don't do this. You got to do it this way, not this way. And it's just I really enjoy the process of learning and continually having something new to do, each day. I can fall back on what I know and what's safe, or I can just experiment and watch everything blow up in my face. Yeah, and I've been making those for like 10 years, so finally got these figured out. That was good.
A lot of times working out the kinks is just as important as finishing a piece completely. Figuring out what you can't do can happen in so many ways. It's really important to figure out the small amount of things that you can do with glass. And a lot of times ambitious projects kind of just, the glass kind of just tells you what you can and can't do.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And then just keep at it.
Yeah, thanks, fellas. Thanks for being here. Well, you got propane, so y'all are good to rock and roll.
All right. Yeah, and I was like, borosilicate as itself as a glass. How long has it been around? Like it was invented in
Late 1800s.
late 1800s.
Yeah.
Color borosilicate used to only come in blue and amber, and that was what in the early 90s. And we didn't.
60s is before color. So
60s is before color.
Yeah. I think back then they were just mixing everything by hand.
Yeah.
Like what they mostly cobalts.
Yeah, mostly cobalt. And that's the same type of colorants that are used in other art mediums. We use cadmium, we use cobalt. We stopped using nickel. That's good.
Yeah.
Chromium goes in some of them. Even some of these glasses glow under UV lights, uranium oxide. So there's a whole lot of processes, but what I'm getting at is it's just such a new medium compared to all the other artistic mediums that are out there. Borosilicate specifically hasn't been around for more than 100 years. And so, a lot of this is just new territory. Of course, we use a lot of the glass blow techniques that were developed hundreds and thousands of years ago. So yeah.
Anybody got any questions for the in-person crowd? So ultimately, they're making a cup, right? They're gonna make this cup with this little creature that Nick is working on, and then they'll put the creature into the cup, and then finish it with the foot. I don't know. You're gonna put it in the cup and then put the foot on, or you're gonna
I'll put it in the cup, then put the foot on.
and then put the foot on after it's in the cup. Okay.
Yeah, that's one of the lessons we learned earlier on is like actually has to be done in this specific order.
Yeah.
So when I'm making these, like everything is step by step by step by step because that's the way it has to be made. Just for putting the marble in and then attaching the foot, you just have to follow these specific steps to keep the heat where you want it and be able to make glass molten where you want it, and to have not let the stress that's in the glass get out of control to where it breaks it.
That's why
Follow our
repairing borosilicate glass oftentimes is more difficult than making it, because when you make something, like Warren was saying, there's an order of operations. You start here, here's your pieces, you assemble those pieces, and then it's done. But if those pieces are broken, you have to figure out a way to hold this thing again, because you're not, once it's off a handle, you're not gonna hold it again, unless it's cut. But still, you have to figure out how to hold it while it's hot. And a lot of times there's a completely different order of operations to reattaching back to a piece, or just attaching a appendage or something. Sometimes, because that order of operations is so difficult, it is easier to grind and glue. But we do our best to figure out that order of operations, almost working backwards to do repairs and stuff like that. Yeah.
Repairs oftentimes take every bit as much time as a new one, so just start fresh.
A lot of times,
And that's the case in a lot of different glass making processes. It's just better to just learn from that one that's now broken, and start new,
Yeah.
right?
Switch with you guys.
Like sometimes with borosilicate, we can take pieces of like broken artwork and incorporate them into another piece
Yeah.
a lot more easily. See, a lot of these tools we have were developed for scientific lamp working. They're doing chemical plants and chemistry processes, and so these are actually a pair of like reverse claw grabbers from a company called Herbert Arnold. And so this is how we're going to go in and grab that glass and keep it off the handle. And then this way we can hold it while it's hot, spin it, rotate it.
Some interesting tools, interesting ways to grab a hold of it.
Yeah, a lot of tools are just figuring out how to like
Yeah,
touch or manipulate
yeah,
the
how to-
glass because you can't touch it while you're working it.
Yeah.
I was like, that's another reason I like it though, is like you can't really just directly manipulate it by hand. It has to be tooled. And then you have to put it in the kiln overnight, so you can't even see how lovely your work turned out until the next morning. So it's kind of like, you get to come in the next day and really kind of get this great surprise, or brace yourself for tragedy. Yeah, that's another fun part of the process. I like that. I like unloading the kiln at
Yeah.
the next morning and seeing all yesterday's hard work, and it turned out really neat in this color. You were talking about the flame chemistry changing, so you get to see the effects of what you did and try to remember them and take notes and be like, okay, this flame chemistry yielded this result. Let's try it differently next time and see what happens. A little more oxygen in the flame.
Sometimes colors will change once they go in the kiln. So when it goes in, when it comes out, it'll look completely different than when it went in. And it really just depends on the color that you're using.
Yep. And most of the borosilicate manufacturers of color are all right here in the U.S. So it just kind of grew out of the Northwest and the East Coast a bit, and now there's a handful of color companies, and they're all producing it right here. So we order it, directly from Portland, Oregon. I've met half the guys that make borosilicate color, like that started the color companies. You get to actually like meet your contemporaries that create the materials that we work with. And they all have fun names. He was talking about Blue Sparkle, and let's see, we've got Evergreen here, we've got Mighty Moss, we've got Heavy Blue Sparkle, or it might be Heavy Blue Leprechaun. This one's Pink Cadillac. So it's just kind of a neat culture of glass makers that kind of keep this whole thing running.
And it's tight knit. We know a lot of them. It's
Yeah.
easy to in other industries and other relationships, when you're a professional, it's easy to be intimidated by the people who make the color or make the tools or make the torches. But in our industry, it's just a whole bunch of people who are really willing and eager to share and to collaborate. And so that's really a testament to tonight too, having these two different artists collaborating together, bringing their specific skills. It's a really good reflection of how the community of glassmakers works at large. Because when I was younger and learning glassmaking, I never thought I would meet some of the people that I looked up to, and today I'm friends with them, and it's like it was not awkward at all. So
Even here in like DFW.
Yeah, even in
there's
the
a lot of
Metroplex, yeah.
flameworking artists, a lot that I look up to, or I was looking up to when I first started, and now like it's easy for me to just talk and hang out
Yeah.
with them because we all kind of understand the same medium, we understand the same struggles that come with working with this glass, and there's a certain level of respect that everyone has for each other. Once you start making things and learning these things and going through the same struggles.
and sticking with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
sticking with it.
Yeah.
And sticking
And
with
being
it.
committed and dedicated to it. Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, the longest piece I've worked on, I could probably put about 50 hours into it. It was a large sculpture. It was like kind of like a Willy Wonka tribute type piece. And then at the very end, it cracked, hit the kiln. After I had finished it, I put it in there. I came to the next day, and it had an irreparable crack in it. And it was just like,
As it goes sometimes.
Yeah, a really good glassmaker told me once that your best work will end up broken on the floor. So if you're not breaking your most precious things, then you're not trying. Was the point to it? You know what I mean? Like the greatest sculptures that he had ever made fell off the pipe and smashed on the floor, or cracked in the oven, or something happened to him. But you learn from those challenges, you know. And so oftentimes in all the different classes that we do, because here at Sinica Studios as a nonprofit, we do a lot of outreach programming. So we go to schools and we bring people in who wouldn't have opportunity otherwise, and we, you know, engage people in creative expression. There's a lot of focus that has to happen, right? There's a lot of communication that's important. So it's a really powerful tool to help people, you know, to learn and to be inspired to learn. And so, you know, I often say, I hope you mess up, you know, because our parents never say that, right? Or the people that we're learning from rarely will say, yeah, good job messing up, you know, because you can accidentally get it right over and over again, but when you get it wrong is when there's more chance for, you know, for improvement and understanding. So that's where you learn. You learn through the challenge, and you go, oh, okay, that didn't work. And early in you know, glassmakers like time, it's often devastating when you spend forever and you're making this beautiful thing, and then it cracks or it just outright smashes all over the floor, and it's just, you know, it's traumatic. But there's a moment when it's no longer traumatic, and it's just like, okay, where did I mess up? Where's the learning opportunity here? Where can I improve so that I can try that, push it to the next level, and find success?
A lot of times, those mistakes, those cracks, you know how to fix them.
You can anticipate them almost.
Yeah, exactly.
And so that little break that they took was beneficial to the piece, because it gave this sculptural piece more time to soak and for all of the molecules to line up together. Because when you heat something up in this world, it gets bigger. When you cool it off, it gets smaller. And so if you think about this right now, what Nick has in his hand, the little tentacle thin areas are cooling much faster than the thick areas, and ultimately it's stressing out, and the molecules don't have time to kind of ease their tension between one another. And so by soaking it in an oven at a certain temperature, it all becomes more relaxed, so to speak, or more annealed is the technical term. And so by giving that a little bit more time in the oven, ultimately it's helpful. And the cup and the foot have already been made, so they're over there soaking, and they're all going to be very nice and even. And so at this point, Nick's going to even out the tentacles on that little creature. I think he's going to strip some of them off and make them a little shorter. And then they'll probably put it back in there to soak again to make sure everything's even. And like they were talking about with color, the color's deceptive right now. You know, you heat the clear up and it turns orange. It's not changing. It's just full of energy. It's glowing. The colors that they were talking about are made with different metals and minerals, and so those metals and minerals are glowing. So they don't look the same. This glass is going to look quite different when it cools off. The blue will probably be more vivid. There'll be some greens, and Nick even said that if they treat it just right at a certain moment, that some red will come out in some of the little specks of the frit that they applied.
This is the tallness, you said?
Yes.
Warren?
That's how high it is.
Some work to do.
Questions? Y'all are quiet peanut gallery over here. No questions. All right, there you go. What do you got?
How are you gonna get his tentacles lower?
Well, I think we're about to find out.
I'm gonna pick
he's-
it off until
he's-
I get it the size that I want.
He's going to heat up probably about a ½ inch down from the top of that tentacle, and then grab it with another rod and stick it and then pull it off. And then he'll remove a little bit. Most of the time they're doing an additive sculpting approach where they add a little bit of glass and push it around and add a little bit more, but he's going to do some subtractive, and he's going to pull some of that off to make them a little shorter. He could also maybe bend them over and back so that they're not as tall, but they're still as long. So he could bend one down over the top and then wiggle it back straight up, but he also has to keep them from touching each other at this point. So he's identified one of them, He's going to heat it up. There we go. Give it a little tug. And then remove some. But that messed up his proportions as far as the little wiggle. That looks pretty good, actually.
Yeah, it's not too bad.
Yeah.
A lot of times when you're pulling it off of a taper like this,
It, the,
your heat needs to be tapered so the glass comes off and a nice even. Because I worked hard to make this a long, thin, tapered tentacle, and if I heat it right here and try to pick it off, it's just gonna stop right there. So I want it to stretch out as I pull. That way, it looks a little more like natural as far as the sculpture goes.
I talked a little bit about it earlier, but the material has a natural kind of surface tension. So if you have something that is quite thin and you get it really hot, it'll thicken. It'll pull itself thicker. And so when you sculpt in glass and you put this layer of really nice detail on it, you can get great textures and you can really get some wonderful detail. But if you put it in front of the torch and get it hot, it just melts smooth again. And so in an attempt to keep the core of this thing hot, Nick's going back and he's heating you know, the core where the eye is, and it's melting away the texture that he's sculpted on the surface. And so he's gone back twice now on that lower eyelid to put it back where he wants it.
The one is on. The same one is on.
It sounded quieter or something.
Yeah, it is pretty quiet. If you turn the other one on, it's significantly louder. Then it will be significantly less cool.
Yes.
Make sure everything's staying warm down here. Once you start working a solid piece like this, the core starts to get cold, and there's this uneven heat where the core is a little cold, and then when I heat the surface gets a little warmer. But the core, I can't heat the core unless I'm really like just melting everything and getting it to move around. So that's why the kiln is really helpful to let everything soak for a while until we can get that even heat.
Yeah, it's really a critical thing to keep that heat even, because with a mass that big, you got the outside, it's heating fast, the molecules are expanding just like, you know, like water when it freezes. They're just expanding, so the inside, you actually be cooling, contracting, and that'll be pulling the two molecules on either side will be pulling. Eventually, if they pull against each other hard enough, they'll crack the entire piece. So going back and trying to even that out to make sure the glass isn't tearing itself apart, essentially.
I think this is hanging out for long enough. I'm gonna put it back in there for a minute.
We teach a lot of classes here. We had an intense 4-week flame working class that happened this morning. I think it was the first of 4 weeks. And so if you're interested in trying this yourselves, we offer all kinds of classes and workshops where you can come one time for just an event or really learn how to do it. Nick's a great teacher too, so.
What's left on it?
I think I got one more tentacle to shorten up, and then I'm gonna check the measurements again. This is the entirety of the cup.
Yeah.
Like I need to make sure I include that stump as well in this measurement.
A little bit, yeah. I mean, it can be pretty close to the bottom. That's fine. I mean, it's got a really round bottom. So as long as you give me like at least 5 millimeters to work with, that'll be fine.
I need to handle up from the other side and try to get straight from the
Yeah.
other side because everything is coming through like this. So I'm gonna have to come through with like an L shape or like a
Yeah, that ought to be a fun handle.
yeah.
Yeah,
They
it'll be
usually
fun.
are.
Yeah, so we have to make sure, like, so what's gonna happen is, like, if this is, say this marble was the creature, I'm gonna have to lower it, like, into the glass, and then weld it to the bottom, and then after the pump's done, we're gonna go in and the torch and pull this handle off right there. But in the meantime, this is gonna be inside of those grabbers I had, and so this and the connection have to be on the same axis for it to work.
Here in a minute, I think we should check the size of the bolt. Take that guy out, see if what they look like, what it looks like on the inside.
Okay. You wanna do it right before you,
I'm gonna take it out. We'll do that. I'll let them sit in there again after that.
okay, but you still have one more tentacle.
I have one more tentacle to go. Yeah. I guess I should switch sides before we do that. I'll do the tentacle and then switch my handles, and then so we can actually
Yeah.
figure it out because it's on the bottom right now.
Yep, and then after we do this, we might even have time to do another cup, with a similar sculpture.
Yeah, I might
Maybe just an
an
eye.
eyeball. Yeah, yeah. Let's think about this.
seriously, you need like a foot. That's all I need.
5 mil is the only thing that's gonna work in
That
there.
is the only thing that's gonna work in there.
All right.
I mean, you got it. Like it's, you know,
Let me get this center for this.
get wherever that roller at the bottom is for the eyeball to be attached. Come here to that, and then make that 5 mil straight with it. Whatever arm bending you gotta do.
Oh, it's not as heavy as I thought. I think that the handle just makes it seem a lot heavier.
Could have done it all hollow.
What?
Nothing.
I was like, from a mechanical standpoint, glass is stronger than steel. However, as soon as it gets a scratch in the molecular structure, then it will completely break rather than bend. And
Did space that 5 mil to go straight on down through?
Well,
oh no, it can attach to.
I'm gonna attach the tentacles.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
gonna have to touch them.
You can even attach to like the tip of one, and that way we can like kind of pull off the tip of the tentacle a little bit sharper if we want to. What I'm doing now is I just wanted to kind of do a demonstration, just kind of show you the viscosity that I was talking about, being able to change it with heat. And you know, you think of glass as like a fairly stiff material. And so it's going to be really strong. You can kind of see how much it can bend. Like, it's actually quite flexible as well. Just, you know, just when it gets to that breaking point, it lets go entirely.
Alrighty, online viewers, we're getting close. The thing's getting really serious.
Yeah, this
Nick
going
is-
into the bottom of the cup is going to be probably the scary point.
Sketchiest part.
Yeah. I was
So
like,
n-
mostly because what's going to happen is we're going to find out if that eye can cool evenly and not crack while it's being welded on there.
I got a box on.
If it can't, well, it's going to be inside the glass, so it doesn't matter.
Well, radiant heat will decel.
That's true. It'll help a little bit.
So Nick's welding up the 5mm to the tips of the tentacles. That's going to be the new attachment point that these guys are going to take this creature and place it inside the cup. So Nick's gathered back a little bit of that glass to build some meat to it, and then he is slowly going to add some heat towards the base and eventually detach that 12mm rod that's in its left hand, so everything will be balanced in that 5mm rod in his left hand. So they can use that roller to kind of check its offness. And you can see how one side is running just a little bit higher than the other.
Go ahead and get yourself going.
So what's nice about these marbles is that they're always constantly on center. And so it's going to be a lot easier to do these marble attachments like I've done before. I don't really do creatures, so this is obviously something new to me. I don't have this problem on my designs. All my designs are round and straight.
I like to make things complicated.
Yeah, they come together easily.
Nothing more fun than a challenge to keep everybody on their toes.
Yeah, that's way better. Let me give this guy heat real quick and then I'll hand it over.
When that's out of the kiln, how do you think it can cool down? Like, if it cools down even without any extra heat, will it be fine?
I think if you give it a,
I mean, it'll be
if
inside.
you don't heat it up, if you're letting it cool, just don't heat it up.
Squeeze on in, y'all. We're getting close.
Oh, good.
Oh, you came back at the right time.
It's going to be a full house for the finale. Love it.
Gotta watch that eyeball.
Alright, ready?
So one more check on that roller to see how we're running on that 5mm. Running pretty nice and even.
I'm gonna leave it just like that. Does that work? Yeah. Or do you want it?
I want to feel it.
So Warren wants to get a feel for how everything is kind of running. Make sure that everything is as centered as possible. So when, who's actually putting this inside the cup? Ah, Warren gets the fun task of sticking the creature in the cup. So
Pretend it's a marble, Warren. It's just a marble. That's all it is. It's a marble.
If you come in with the hand torch, you just warm it.
just a really big funky marble.
Big weird, like off balance marble.
Alright, that should be good.
I'm gonna cut it off and leave a nub, and then I'll put it in the kiln.
Yep.
All right, so we have a consensus that it is nicely balanced on that 5mm. Nick's going to use his torch, cut off that 12mm, leave enough of a stump. So that will be our attachment point to the inside of the cup. That's going to go into the kiln. That's going to get nice and warm, 1050, let everything soak.
But that eyeball soak, it's like, we keep talking about this, like, heating and cooling and heating and cooling. I was like, the glass is something that's like, it can cool, and as long as we don't, like, reintroduce temperature to it, you won't have that glass on the outside trying to pull apart from the glass on the inside. So you'll see when I have it inside of this snifter glass, when it's in there, it's gonna be cooling down, but as long as we don't go back and try to heat it up rapidly,
So if you didn't hear online what these guys are planning, Warren just went over the entire game plan of how this whole thing is going to stick together. So all that pantomiming that you guys were probably seeing are all the moves that are going to make this thing come together.
Yeah, when I do it like that, and I do it in my head, and I really try to imagine myself.
It's all
actually
about the
doing it.
visualization.
Visualization is super critical because if you can imagine how you're going to do it in your head, there's a good chance it's going to work just like you thought. And so yeah, it was like sometimes if I'm making a complicated piece, I'll make it in my head first before I try to actually make it.
Hopefully to minimize any uh-ohs.
Yeah, and try to find out where my problems are going to be.
Which way?
Right
There? Okay.
Can I have a little bit more water?
Yeah, of course. Absolutely. Water break. Brr.
Slightly stolen.
For that very reason, just nervousness. I'll do it eventually. Until I just mustered up the courage to finish the piece, and I did. And it never really is as bad as it is in my head. Until it is. Let that sit in there for a couple more minutes.
I think you drank all your water.
Do we have a beer that I can drink?
Do we have a beer? How long have you been here?
No, I'm just trying to be polite. I know we have beer. I can have two.
Okay.
Yeah, 2 beers. First with whiskey, then with beer.
Thought they would side by side.
We want things to get too crazy.
Yeah. I want to get all loose and sloppy with it.
Not until the
Throw the
monster's
glass
in.
around.
So here's a collaborative cup I made with Clifton. He made the entirety of the cup, and I made the eyeball on the inside. This is soft glass, so it works very differently. Yeah, this
I
is
didn't know
an
that was
entirely soft glass cup. Yeah, and it works very differently. It's much softer. Things, they like a more radiant heat rather than a very aggressive.
You can't have it.
Okay. I thought you were handing it to me. Rather than a very aggressive spot heat, just because the way this glass expands as opposed to the borosilicate expands in a how would you say, Kevin? You're the one who works this glass more than I do.
How does it expand?
Yeah, as opposed to borosilicate.
Quickly.
Quickly, yeah,
Quickly,
a lot
fastly.
more. The borosilicate has a much lower coefficient of expansion. It doesn't expand a whole lot when it heats up, so there's a lot less chance of rapid stress as opposed to with this stuff where it's almost 3 times more expansion going on, and that is a significant amount of stress that can happen with spot heats and there's all kinds of different things that can go wrong. But this one, it came out pretty good. This was one in a series of cups that we made. I think we made three of them. This one unfortunately didn't make it. It's got a crack on it. But my lovely wife went ahead and sealed it up for me with some food grade resin, and now I can drink out of it. This is my work cup.
We have
Looks
a
like
lot
it
of
has
work.
permanent.
A lot of work cup.
True.
Traditional glass makers.
Make a toast.
Cheers.
No. Closer. It's made down the street.
Oh.
That limits it to like 5 more breweries.
I was like, now I'm gonna quit guessing now. I already know what I'm comparing it to.
It's a RAR.
Oh.
Artists made down the street?
Yeah.
Block.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, you go to Main Street and turn left. And it's right there.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
It's just right there.
Yeah, they'll have the brewery, you go in there and see like 50-foot stacks of cans.
That's cool.
So at this point, we are just waiting on that glass to get nice and hot again, soaked to the core temperature so these guys can safely assemble the cup. As they've been alluding to throughout the evening, it is really critical that your temperature is equal and it's really nice and soaked in. The less stress you can add to this process, the better the connections are going to go. That's one reason why Warren kind of visualized and went through the whole process to make sure he knew each step he was going to need to take to make it actually happen the way he wanted it to. He and Nick have been talking on and off throughout the whole process, making sure that this is where I need the glass to be, this is where they need the heat to be. So when it does come down to it and everything's getting ready to rock and roll, it all comes together as seamlessly and with as little issue as possible. So it does look like they're getting close. Nick's going to pull his creature out. Warren's got his cup out. It's kind of a little bit of a sizing, so you can kind of see where it's going to fit. Nick's going to shrink that little tapered point down significantly, so that's going to stick together. So we've got our sizing kind of set up. We'll let that heat soak in just a little bit longer. Before we make this thing happen into reality. I thank you guys for hanging out with us this evening and watching the demo. We're thrilled to have Warren here to join Nick for this demonstration process. It's always fun to bring in outside artists that aren't affiliated with us and get to kind of learn about them and their process, what they bring to the table, how they've learned. And the most fun is, you know, that collaborative opportunity to bring those different ideas together. Hopefully it spurs something down the line where these guys can continue this process. But if nothing else, we get to see a different idea and a different kind of thought to making some really, really fantastic art glass. So as we do get closer, I want to thank the Communities Foundation for their support, the Arts Council of North Texas, Texas Commission on the Arts for their support, the Arts Council of North Texas, I said that already. Who else do we want to thank?
R4 Foundation.
The R4 Foundation for their continued support, and the Ann L. and the Carol Green Roads Foundation, Charitable Trust for their support. We appreciate them and everything that they have been able to do for us throughout the years. And we appreciate you guys. You're the ones that make us really and truly come to life and keep doing what we do. If you haven't taken a class, you need to come see us. Glass Blowing Studio is going to be operational in just a month and change. So you can come in and get hot and sweaty with the rest of us. If you dig what you've seen Warren and Nick do this evening, we offer flame working classes. Again, maybe not starting as aggressively as these guys are, but we can definitely get you into the ballpark, understanding the material, and feeling comfortable in the studio space. And the one studio we haven't really talked about this evening is our kiln forming studio. It's another amazing way to experience the material. It's a little less intimidating. There's no direct heat. There's air conditioning. It's a great way to really create specific form and texture and pattern. And any of our classes are offered can be as short as a half hour or go as long as 4 weeks. You get to the point where you understand the material. We're comfortable with you guys playing with it. You can actually come in and rent our studios and continue to expand your horizon and your learning process in our studio, so you don't have to worry about building something out. We've got it all for you guys. So Nick's pulled down the connection point to a nice even taper. Eventually that's going to get heated up really nice and hot, balled together, and then smushed into the bottom of that cup. Yeah.
And I found cannelloni system.
Just in the body. The body's sketchy as hard.
Yeah, the body, I mean, like it's solid, so I don't want to like thing heat. Once it's in there, you know, the cup will keep it warm
For
for a little bit, so get just a little.
How are we doing on our cameras, Gene? Are we running out of power on our cameras, or are we doing all right? Okay. I know. Oh, okay. You don't see it? I know the camera on the table's at 13%. Okay.
Right now, I'm just kind of preparing the extra glass I'm going to use.
We ready?
I don't know what you want to do.
You like to take it
Powder? Well, that's not going to do it.
You got this.
They all got it. Yes.
How big is your studio space you normally work in, Warren?
Maybe slightly bigger than this garage.
Nice. So you've got a little bit of working room. Nice.
It's really nice. It's been one of the best studios I've had. You know, at one point, you know, I was pulling glass inside of a 8-foot by 20-foot cargo trailer
Oh, fantastic. We've got.
with a wood stove because we were in Idaho, and so it was like make something, go tend the stove. You know, make something, chop firewood. Make something, tend the stove.
We just got a container on the back patio, so we can carve out a space for you if you need.
Yeah, but it's really hard because I'd be making stuff and you can see how long these handles are.
Yeah, you run out of room real quick. That's for sure.
And so I'd be making stuff and be like, okay, put it together, you know, right there. I'm almost 6 feet. I mean,
And if you've only got 8 feet of space between you, you're real stuck.
yeah, if I was gonna do something like a stretch, I'd have to like kneel down. You know, really be mindful of the space I was in. I still have to be mindful here. You know, sometimes you blow glass and knock into stuff.
Is it air conditioned?
What's that?
Is your current space air conditioned?
No.
No?
No. So right now it would be exactly as hot in the studio as it is outside.
Working midnights?
What's that?
Work midnights?
No, no.
No,
the
you just
schedule
sweat it?
doesn't really allow for it. I just sweat it.
Man.
I have something called I have the ice vest.
Yeah.
Glacier tech.
Sure.
I actually got it in the car. But it's so nice in here. I was like, hey, see, what is this?
We thought we'd treat you guys for once. Normally we do this demonstration out in the hot shop area, but this is one of those few years where we are rebuilding everything out there. Normally the furnace is not in the middle of the room. It's stuck behind our heat wall. And that weighs about 4,500 pounds, so it's not real movable. So it's actually currently curing. We just did our final pour to invest everything together. Hopefully we'll be unbricking that and putting our new burner into it in the next 3 days. So we'll be getting that hot. I believe we have to have that fired up August 21st at our bare maximum. It's because we've got classes in there starting September 3rd. Absolutely they are. Of course they're signed up. Oh, yeah. But normally this demonstration happens out there. We thought we'd throw a little monkey wrench not only for ourselves, but for these guys. And I think it's worked out pretty darn well. So thank you guys for coming. It's awesome to have a really...
What are your classes like?
Oh, goodness. What are our classes like? They range...
Creatures inside.
Nice.
they,
So I just went to
Yeah.
Do you offer hands-on?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. Yeah. Our main focus here is education. When people ask me what do I make students. That's what Nix makes more than anything else. Is you guys coming in, getting your hands dirty, understanding how the material works. We will give you as much of a leash as we feel comfortable with you working. I know these guys directly behind you have been here and taken classes with us more than a few times. So if you need testimonials, they're right behind you guys. But they range anywhere from 30 minutes to 4 weeks in length. It just depends on your level of addiction and what you want to get out of it. The longer 4-week classes are really geared more towards fundamental learning. So you're learning the hows and the whys. So eventually, if you want to, you can come in and rent the studio space and continue to learn at your own pace. Let's say you get fascinated by that snifter form that Warren's been making. You can come in, rent the shop, and really figure out the mechanics of how and why it works and what it takes to make it. So that's ultimately what our main focus is teaching you guys to get dirty with this stuff. So, and we've got, absolutely, yeah, we've got brochures in the gallery. Our schedule of classes is all online in each of the 3 disciplines we teach: flame working, what these guys are doing, the hot glass, glass blowing in the furnace, and then also kiln forming as well. If you're not familiar with kiln forming, think of it like stained glass without a metal structure. All your design work is done nice and cool, no direct heat, no gravity to worry about. If you're coming in to work with friends, it's a great social environment as well. You don't have to worry about something happening when you're not paying attention. And it also gives you the ability to be much more specific about what you're trying to create. You know, you've seen these guys working throughout the evening. Things get really fluid, really juicy, and you don't always expect what's going to happen. It just kind of happens. With the kiln forming, you know exactly what's happening because you are the only influence in the material. So it's an excellent studio to get involved with because not everybody likes fire.
Right, yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I mean, 3,000 degrees coming off the face of these torches can be pretty intimidating. 2,100 to 2,300 degrees out in the glass blowing studio, or it's just cooking you right in the middle of your chest. That can also get kind of hot at the very minimum and a little overwhelming at the maximum. So,
Yeah.
but
But I mean, it's kind of what you expect, though, too.
oh, for sure,
Because you know
what you're getting into.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Alrighty, so is this the moment of truth? Alrighty. A little bit of a dust off. Make sure there's no fiber blanket left on the surface of that cup. If he goes, there's a little bit of, basically it's a high temperature insulation blanket that's sitting in the bottom of that kiln. That keeps everything from kind of sticking together. If you don't dust that off and you go right into that raging heat, it's going to embed all that blanket right into the surface and create a weird grainy texture. Think of basically the Owens Corning you've got sitting in your, wow, that's sketchy. That's got such a wiggle when you put that cup in there. All right, so that 5 mil rod is going into that holder. What that is going to do is allow, this is really bonkers. So we're trying to get 2 sections nice and hot. We want to make sure that the creature is really warm. We also need to make sure that the tip that Nick created is really nice and hot. That's going to be our big weld that actually goes in and sticks to the base of it. Don't worry about the screechy sounds. Those are kind of normal. That's just the metal on those fingers actually grabbing and rubbing against the glass. Although your reaction is pretty darn good, Warren's wife. So what has happened at this point? What has happened at this point? This is one of those moments where I may not do a whole lot of commentary and may just kind of watch, so sorry. We've got the creature that's actually, this is a really cool setup. That 5 mil rod is internal on the little claw grabber that Warren's got in his left hand, and it's physically spinning in place. So he can add a lot of super hot heat right on that very base. The creature's gonna stay static in that midsection. He's gonna build the heat up into it. And my guess is when he likes that heat, we're going to dump this straight up and down and allow that tip to penetrate into that little ball, what we might call an avolio, to make sure that sticks really nicely. Or he might get a little sassy and just pull that entire section out so it creates a hollow, and then the stem of the creature goes through. I'm just speculating at this point. The second thing, oh, we're going to create a hollow on that bottom, have the creature fall all the way through. That's super rad. This is bonkers. You guys came for a good show.
I'm a bit nervous because you can see that the creature is spinning, so I worry that once it tags, it's going to not really like being attached to anything.
So the idea was not to have the creature rotating?
I didn't really think about that.
Fair enough, fair enough. I'm just gonna watch and enjoy. You focus and do. So getting that really nice, precise flame right on that very skinny little rod and pulling and tearing off that little material. You can actually hear when it goes from a solid to a hollow. It actually sounds like it's whistling a little bit. All right, we're going to collectively hold our breaths. Good job, class, with the phones out. And then just that little bit of heat, that angle downhill, the creature's going to slide into place, just like they practiced it 1,000 times. And by 1,000, I mean 1. Getting a really nice hot heat on there. That graphite paddle is going to come in, help create a nice seal on it. Nick, don't forget to breathe. Warren, don't forget to breathe either.
Is that foot in the kiln?
Yes.
All right, so let me know when you want.
Oh, I'm not doing that now.
Okay. Fair enough, fair enough.
So we're just going to seal the creature into the cup, and then we'll assemble later.
We will assemble it
Soon?
Yeah.
So the final assembly will be soon. We don't know when will be now, but it will be then. So really getting a monster amount of heat specifically in that little area. That nice tight inner fire, working on that CC+. It's a premix, so all your combustion's happening inside of the body of that torch. Creates a hotter flame than what the exterior of that torch will give you. Oh. One of those rare moments I wish I had a bigger lens. A little bit more heat. And again, this is where the heat management really becomes critical. You know, we've got to make sure that everything's staying reasonably warm, especially because we have so much mass at the body of that creature. That's our big kind of sketchy point at this stage. Welding on that 6, giving a little bit of a base, another little avolio. Soak that heat into it. Add a little bit more if needed.
Can you clean off the tip of that for me?
So again, just building that heat, making sure you've got a really nice hot connection. That will allow a little bit of heat to kind of travel up. I'm going to sneak right behind you, Nick. Trying to make that connection as centered as possible to the cup. Nick's standing by with his hand torch if needed. Going vertical to kind of help let gravity center things. Releasing the spring. That 5 mil comes out. Now we've got that internal. You got this, Warren. Feeling that heat up, we're going to let that just kind of tear that little 5 mil right off. Nice and subtle. This is going to go into the kiln. That's going to soak up to another 1060. We're about a third of the way there. We can all collectively breathe for at least a moment. Nicely done. Nicely done.
Since it was heavy on one side, it wasn't, I'll shake you now, it wasn't spinning with it. So as this glass was getting molten, what was happening is it was twisting the glass. And it was kind of twisting it up, and so right where that connection point is going to have a little bit of stress because it was under stress twisting. So we have a couple options to remove that stress. We'll reach inside of there with this handy torch, and we still got the 5 mil. Oh no. That would be the end of it.
So, viewers, we just had the ultimate of oh crap moments, talking about what was going to happen next, and there was that little tink that we heard emanate from that annealer in the back, the stress Warren was talking about in the very base of the cup where the creature was attached to it. So at this point, things are slim in terms of survival for that little guy. They're going to probably take a look at it, see if there is anything they can physically do to it, but once you hear that tink inside the annealer, chances are very, very slight that you're going to be able to recover what these guys have been trying to pull off for the last 3 hours and change. So they'll probably do a little conversation about things, see where they may want to go with it. It may not be as bad as we think, but again, generally when you hear that noise, things have gone from a successful attachment to not so great. So it looks like Warren's going to warm up those grabbers. They're coated in a Kevlar. Maybe go in, try and grab it, see if they can do any healing to it, but don't know what the plan is going to be at this point. Certainly not the ending result that these guys were hoping for. But glass is a pretty resilient material. You never know where things are going to go. It may end up where this can be salvaged and something different can be done with it. So he's going to go to that kiln with those grabbers, pull it out. Nick's got support underneath with that hot defense pad.
Yeah, we just got that hot defense pad that you can see.
Oh my goodness, yeah, that base really blew up.
Came in and cracked, and it pretty much started right where I was worried about it. And the cooler, as that cools down, that crack is just going to continue to spread.
Now, is this fruit salvageable from the glass?
At this point, I usually throw it in a water bucket and walk out of the shop.
There are always possibilities for recovery in certain instances.
Itself might be, if we can break the goblet around it, we might still be able to use that creature.
Yeah. There are always opportunities to take those uh-oh moments, and again, as we've been discussing throughout the evening, learn from them.
What about making a goblet with that as a stem? Probably can't.
One is a
So now it's all about options.
There's three tentacles that come up.
And it could just be a clear coming off that.
Yeah,
tentacle.
and that's all that I was expecting. It's just clear.
Okay, so I could just make another cup. If we can pull that creature out. Probably should be able to. Like it's on that side.
Let him go.
I don't know how you
Let him go.
pull it out.
So
I mean, if I
get
get
that
that
thing out. Get that board out that you had.
Okay.
I'm going to.
Oh, this thing?
Yeah, yeah. Set it in there. We'll set it in here. I'll tear off the 5 mil rod. I'll come in. Well, the top doesn't matter anymore.
No.
So I can be pretty aggressive, but I'm not heating up the body of the creature. So I'll attach, and then
Yeah. So
I
we
was
just
thinking
go
we
ahead
could
and
just
sign
attach
off.
that 5 mil and shock the bottom of the cup till it breaks off. Putting a connection, I was like, you still have to open that cup up and get it off of there. I think it'd be easier to break it off.
so
Let those cracks form all the way and then it'll pop off in pieces.
do you think it'll do that while it's still in the cup?
Oh, like crack?
Yeah. No. Can't hit it with some heat and get that crack to keep going. Maybe, or maybe some.
I mean, I could hold it with those tweezers and use a hand torch and try to chase those cracks. Make it crack.
I could grab it with the hemostats.
With a little bit of
So, gentlemen, it is obviously your call. We're right at our 9 o'clock threshold. Our cameras are getting ready to take a nice nap. You can continue to play if you want, but you are not.
yeah,
You are not required
Let's
to do
just see
it.
if we can get this thing out, and you'll at least watch us try to like save this thing. We were
Okay.
talking about lessons, so if we were to attempt this in the future, while this creature is in here, and the cup was in there, what I would have done is had a little arm off of this, like
See you guys.
clamped it to the grabbers, so it would have, so the creature would have turned with the grabbers, and that would have solved the entire problem. And it would have been a success. It will be a success next time we do it. Yeah.
Alrighty, so these guys are going to give it one more little shot, see if they can kind of salvage what they have. Our cameras are certain running at the end of their lifespan, so we'll keep running with what we got. Hopefully we'll have something fantastic to show you guys. We'll let this kind of roll as we go. But again, thank you to Warren and Nick for coming and demonstrating this evening. It's been an awesome opportunity to watch you guys work. Can't thank you enough for sharing your talents. I'm going to hand it over to Cliff for final thank yous, and we'll just kind of let the cameras run and see where we go.
Thanks, Gav. Thank you, Warren and Nick, for being here. I want to thank the team. As you can see, this is all about working together. It's about collaboration. It's about community. Community of glassmakers are a phenomenon, to say the least. And it takes a team to put on a presentation like this. So I want to thank Kevin, thank Gene Fernandez behind the production of tonight's event. Heidi Childers in the gallery. We got Imran here helping. The gallery has been freshly remodeled, so if you haven't been to Sinica Studios lately, you need to come in and check out how we've changed things up. Every summer we try to improve the facilities in some way. We're rebuilding the furnace in the glass blowing studio. We've made some new space in the kiln forming studio. We made things more accessible in the whole building. So come check us out. Come take a class. Come have a private event. Come make some stuff with us this fall. Hopefully the Texas summer heat will break. We do this like you probably know, the second Friday of every month is an open studios night event where we feature an artist. Next month we will be featuring our artist in residency. Twice a year, we select from the local pool of talent in Fort Worth, Texas, a non-glass artist to do a 5-week residency with us. Allie Rogers was selected last, I guess it was about 6 months ago, and she has learned a lot about glass making, and she has experimented, and she is realizing some of her concepts in glass, and it will be her demonstration next month. So gallery night is the 10th of September, and she is the featured artist. That is Saturday. However, she is busy that day. She works at the Amon Carter, and they're doing a big party on the porch. So we're going to host her demonstration the day before, on Friday, the 9th of September, from 6 to 9. She and the team will be realizing her ideas in this new material to her, and she'll have an interactive kind of art display here that you can come and play with. Her work is fascinating. Check her out on Instagram and Facebook, and we've got several posts out about her residency and her time with us. So follow us for that event, and then the following day during gallery night we'll certainly be doing demonstrations, because there's going to be a lot of people out and about checking out the galleries in Fort Worth. So September the 9th during our Open Studios night, and September the 10th. Thank you, Warren and Nick, for being here. I think they're wrapping